Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I'm Jazmin Palma, and I'm stoked that you're watching this video because we're covering a pretty important topic. What is a national delegate? I promised you guys in talking points number 3 that a video would be made, so here we are, and let's dive right into it. So, what is a national delegate? And let me preface this from the very beginning. I'm giving you a very brief overview. This is very complex in a way, not really. There's just a lot of moving parts and a lot of details in between that I'm not diving super deep into. But at the end, I will give you a resource where you can find all the details if you really, really want to. So, what is a national delegate? Great question. And what we're going to start off with is this. FFA is a student-led organization, and that's something really important to remember because that is the purpose of the delegates, the purpose of delegate work. Delegates are the student voice in our organization. Our purpose is to provide that student input on what we want to see this organization doing because we're student-led. It's the students. The members are the ones who are making these decisions. So at that, there are 475 delegates every year at National Convention. These 475, or at least the maximum number that can be there, are from all 52 associations. And again, represent what the students want and the student voice. And you may be wondering why 475, who gets chosen as this? And that's a great question. How are they allocated, right? We said 52 associations, that's a lot of members, a lot of numbers. How do we split it up evenly? And the way I like to think about it, well, first, it's in the national constitution, okay? It gives us how they're supposed to be split up. And it says that there are 2 delegates per state minimum, okay? I like to think about it and, okay, don't quote me, but you know how in the Senate there's 2 per state, doesn't matter the population? That's what I think about. There's a minimum of 2 per state, per association, just like there's 2 in the Senate for our government. Now, additional delegates based on the individual state association's percentage of the national FFA membership. I like to think about that as the House in a way, but we're combined. It's not 2 separate things. So we said there was 52 associations. Each one gets 2 delegates minimum. That's 104. And we said that there was 475. So do a little bit of math, and that's 371 delegates that are left remaining to be divided up by the states. And that's based off the percentage of national FFA membership that a state has. And to help you understand this a little bit better, here is the delegate allocation for this year, which is 2025. Let's just look at, and I know the lines are a little screwed, so let's go down here. So Idaho has 6,388 members. This is 0.617% of the national FFA membership. Okay, so we keep scooting. That means that they get 4 delegates. So there's the minimum of 2 plus 2 additional delegates. So they have 4. And since we're in North Carolina, let's go ahead and look at that. North Carolina is fortunate to have 48,267 members, which makes up 4.666% of the total national membership. Therefore, we get 19 delegates, and that stayed the same since last year. The thing with this is that it can change every year, which is why they reallocate delegates every year. And it just depends on how much growth your state sees and how much growth the national organization sees. So that's delegate allocation. The second part to this is that the delegates are selected by the state association. So I can speak for North Carolina saying that since we have 19, the 6 state officers that we have are automatically delegates, and then the remaining 13 are chosen through an interview process. And that can be regional officers, and you can just be a member. It can be all the things. So interview process, and then you get to go on this delegate experience with us. So those are the numbers. That's how it's allocated. And then something else to note, we talked about the two delegates that every state gets guaranteed. These are the leadership delegates. So they will be facilitating the work whenever we are in committees. And we'll talk about what that means later. But the remaining ones that were allocated are committee delegates. And they're really driving the direction of our committees and represent the remainder of the state delegations. So the delegate process really starts at State Officer Summit, which is in July. And this is whenever the committees are created by the National FFA Officer Team. Leadership delegates are trained and allotted to the committees that they're going to be in. And then leadership within those committees are chosen. And then initial research and questions on the committees begin. What are these committees? Great question. I thought I had a slide. Here it is. The 6 committees. So typically every year there's 6 committees, okay? And like we said, the National Officer Team chooses this at State Officer Summit. But this work is done at National Convention when all 475 delegates are together. There's approximately 80 delegates in each committee, and the purpose is for them to create proposals based off of their purpose. There's different committee meetings that happen before the first general session at National Convention. So we are leaving on Sunday, and our work begins on Tuesday. So we're doing work ahead of time to get those proposals ready. Now, these proposals go to, which we'll talk about here, right? This happens at National Convention. The delegates get together, committee meetings, proposals are created, and business is conducted. So that's what we just talked about. And the product is committee reports. Now, what is the purpose of these committees? So we said that delegates are the student voice and representative. So after National Convention, once we've created these proposals, the recommendations are referred to national staff, basically, for implementation. They try to figure out, how can we make this happen? We see what the students want. We're hearing you. How can we make this happen? And some that are more strategic in nature are sent to the National FFA Board of Directors. And mind you, I'm finding all of this information in the delegate handbook. So here's an example. This was last year's proposal. So this was the outcomes, and then this is the action that they took on it. You can actually see what happens, and it's updated. It said it was updated February 26th of this year, from last October. So that's what happens after National Convention. Now, delegates don't only do committee work, while that is the bulk of what we do, because we spend a lot of time there creating proposals based off of those topics. There's other obligations that the delegates have according to the Constitution of the National FFA organization. And here are the 6. So, like we said, recommendations made by each committee. So we're working in those committees and we're creating those proposals. But we also vote on any proposed amendments to the National FFA Constitution. Okay. We said student-led, which means the student voice must be heard. So the board of directors can't just change our Constitution without getting approval from the students, if that makes sense. So, for example, this year, there's an amendment to the Constitution that would make all programs across the nation affiliate, or we would implement the affiliate model. But the delegate body has to approve this amendment before it can be implemented. So that's another big, huge role that the delegates play. Again, student voice from all 52 associations. We also established the annual membership dues, and that's kind of just a we approve type deal, but it is in the Constitution that we have to do it. The next one is conferment of the American FFA degree for the candidates that were recommended and approved by the board of directors. So we just kind of be like, yes, we approve them. But it is a role designated for the delegates to approve in the Constitution, yet again. So next, we have approval of the National Officer Committee report. Now, this is largely ceremonious, right? We trust that the nominating committee, chose the team right because they were the ones in the interview process and they were in the room. They know who is the best slate of national officers. So if you pause and you pay attention at the end of their installation, they do like all opposed, and then motion passes like this quick, because nobody can say no. We're all going to say yes, we approve of the committee report, but it is in the Constitution. So there's that. And then finally is any new items of business, which has to be approved 2/3 vote of the delegate body before being brought up. And you wonder, 2/3 vote, why that? Well, in order to keep all 475 of us on track, we use parliamentary procedure in the Robert's Rules of Order. So when your advisor says, learn Parley Pro, it is very important because it keeps a meeting organized in many different settings. And in the case of delegate work, you got to know it. Something else to know about delegate business, especially at National Convention when we're in the committee work. Business items can only be considered when a quorum exists. What is a quorum? Down here, it's the minimum number of delegates required at a business session to conduct the business of the organization. So in the Constitution here, Section B, it says, a quorum shall exist when both the following conditions are met at the time that the business is conducted. A majority of the official delegates registered at the National Convention are present, and at least 26 state associations are represented by the official delegates. So there's the quorum, the minimum number of people that must be met to even conduct business. Next, final question here. What is the role of the national officers in all of this? Because the national officers still represent the student voice in a way. So what's their job? Great question. So at State Officer Summit, like we talked about earlier, they're facilitating the leadership delegate training. They're kind of guiding us on how to facilitate discussion when we're in those committees, like we talked about. And they also are determining which proposals will be referred to a committee. So they're creating those committees that we talk about at National Convention. And then finally, at National FFA Convention and Expo, they're facilitating the business session. So when you have the committees, and we're divided into those groups of 80, we create proposals, and then we come to this, what we call the business session. And that's where you have your chair, your secretary, and then usually the vice presidents are helping maintain order. That is what the national officer's role is, and that's where all 475 of us vote on the proposals from each committee. If you would like to know more, again, this was a super brief overview. There is a whole page dedicated to it. We're actually going to slide to that right now. If you go to ffa.org/delegates, I can spell it. Here is the website. So the delegate handbook, this is where I pulled a majority of the information from that was in the presentation. So it talks about the guiding principles, the role of a delegate, items to be considered, how you allocate it, all of the good stuff in more detail than we just went over. But there's also the resources for this year. Mind you, everybody has access to this. Anybody can go look at these, check it out. So for the current year, here's the committees for this year compiled onto a sheet. So, let's see, the delegate committee research. So we talked about initial conversations at State Officer Summit. We created these questions that are in red, and then they gave us a response between July and now, so we can be prepared. But that first committee is student input on the strategic plan. And these committees change every year, so that's something cool to look forward to. And on my Instagram, actually, I'm going to be posting all this information in a pretty general, simple format of what the committees are. You can also see how they calculate the delegates. There's a YouTube video on that. But this is a really good resource here if you'd like to learn more. There's also, this was the amendment that we were talking about, removing barriers, affiliation amendment. It's a pretty big deal. So that's on here as well. But yeah, that's what we got. Go check that out if you're interested in learning in more detail. So thank you. I hope that this was, it was 15 minutes. I was shooting for 10, but I like to yap, I guess. Thank you for joining me on what is a delegate. Let's understand that. And I hope that some questions were answered and the process was explained. And if you have any more questions, again, go to that resource page and you can find out a lot more. There's also vlogs on this page from last year, so you can see what the schedule looked like at least. And yeah, follow me on Instagram at jasmins.journey.in.ag. And then on YouTube, which you're already here. Again, really appreciate your time, and I hope to see you next time.